Welcome to the Insurance Revolutionized podcast brought to you by Success Without Sacrifice. I am your host and coach, Cheree Sauer, and here on the podcast, we are on a mission to revolutionize the way women in insurance do business. We will be interviewing women who are changing the face of insurance, as well as giving you tips and inspiration to grow your agency to new heights without sacrificing what is most important to you. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Insurance Revolutionized podcast brought to you by Success Without Sacrifice. I'm Cheree Sauer. I'm your host and coach. And today we're going to be talking about harnessing the power of your female physiology. And the reason I feel that this topic is so important for female business owners is because of really kind of like the history in society and what we've been told and what we've been taught. And that really is to um, push our bodies, push towards our goals, really work. Our bodies as females were not designed to work 24/7, 365. Nobody's bodies were designed that way. And yes, we might take evenings and weekends and vacations, but for women who are business owners, especially, I have found that it's really, really hard for high performing women to shut their brains off completely from work and to be able to release and let go. So, part of what I want to talk about today is, and this is common in lots of different industries, but the insurance industry, I think, especially because it's been a male dominated industry for so long. And now the statistic is that there is, I think it's like 51% of agents are actually females, but agency owners only make up, I want to say it was like 30% or 40%. I don't have this in front of me. I don't have the stats in front of me. I just remember looking it up, and I was actually shocked to see that there's actually more female insurance agency owners, or sorry, female insurance agents, but definitely less agency owners that are female. And in the insurance industry, because of that, because it's been so male dominated, and in other industries, and really, I think, feel like just society in general, whether that's a regular career, you're a business owner or not, women have had to fight to get up the ladder, right? Um, I feel like careers don't necessarily always support women and kids, and so women a lot of times end up sacrificing themselves, their health, for the sake of success and or for others. So really today is talking about how can you really understand and own your female physiology and learn how to work with your body instead of against it. And when I learned this and I started to apply this in my life, it was a total game changer. Um, where men are on a 24-hour cycle, men are more productive in a 24-hour period. Women are more productive in a 28-day period. And what I want to say about this is, yes, women's cycle is 28 days generally, right? But keep in mind as you're listening to this, this looks different for everybody, especially if you've had kids or you've had something that's affected your hormones. Our food affects our hormones, what we eat, what we consume, what we put on our bodies. All of that affects our hormones. So you may not be on a 28-day cycle. I am typically, I wish mine was like clockwork and it, aligned perfectly every single month. But for me, that's not the case. I am typically on an average of a 25-day cycle, but sometimes it'll be 26, some days it'll be 28. So it took me a while. I've been studying about female physiology. I mean, my background is sports medicine, so I understand female physiology from a holistic physiological standpoint, but I never really understood the female cycle. And what I mean by that is I didn't know that there were different seasons within our cycle. And when I first learned about this, it was because I had heard Kate Northrup on a podcast episode, and she had written the book Do Less. And Do Less is all based on um, kind of her story. If you're not familiar, you can check her out. But really, she had a sick kiddo. She was a business owner, and all of a sudden, she had to take care of this kid, and she didn't have time to work 40 plus hours a week anymore. And her mom, I believe, is a gynecologist and always used to talk about the female cycle and the different seasons. But it wasn't until she was kind of forced and pigeonholed into cutting back her hours that she really started to apply this. And so she wrote a book, and that's where I was first introduced to it. Loved her book, but it wasn't enough for me to really understand how to apply it to my own life. Um, and the more that I started to track and understand my body, uh, the more fascinated I became by it, and the more it helped me to be productive and to really learn how my body works. I would, and part of it, I would have these days where, I had all of this energy. I felt on top of the world. I could talk to anybody. I was confident. I was super creative. And then a week later, my energy would be gone, and I would just feel like I hit this wall, and I would be so frustrated with myself, and I would wonder, what just happened? What's wrong with me? Why, and I would try time blocking, and I would be like, okay, on Wednesdays, I'm going to do content creation, right? And I would have a week where it was like, oh, this is awesome. And I would have a couple days where I could be really good at content creation. But then my next day, I was like, oh, no, I'm supposed to be on finances today. Like, I got to work on my finance today, right? And so I couldn't figure out, and I was super frustrated of why time blocking was not working for me. Um, and so when I learned about the female cycle and how to really harness the power of it for productivity, it was a game changer for me. So, like I said, I would have these days where, I felt like I could do anything. And then the next week, I would just feel brain fog and fatigued. And I would question, what did I eat? What did I do wrong? What do I need to do differently? And then, Wednesday would come and I'm supposed to be doing content creation, and my brain is just mush and I have nothing to give. And I could not figure out, I just thought, what is wrong with me? So, uh, when I learned about this, um, really harnessing the power of our female physiology, I started to study it. I started to really track my cycle. I tried to use the health app on the iPhone, because you can track your cycle in there, but it wasn't enough to really help me understand the different seasons within my cycle. So I found the Moody app. I think I was just like went in the app store and was looking for different apps, and I found the Moody app. And I like fell in love with the Moody app, and I tell all my friends, my family about it. I think it's so fascinating. So it helps you to track your cycle, but it also tells you what seasons you're in, and you'll get these little messages that say, "Hey, you're at day 10. You're probably feeling creative or energized, or this is how you can support your body, or don't drink alcohol, drink more water, drink green tea." And so it has all of these tips and these tools, even down to like uh, if you're in the rest phase, it's going to give you exercises or breathing to really help support your body in whatever phase you're in. So, the one thing that I will say about this um, is everybody's cycle is different. Um, so, most people are on a 28-day cycle, right? Mine tends to be kind of all over the place. Its average is 25 days, but sometimes it's 26, sometimes it's 27, and sometimes it's 28. So it took me a little bit longer to really understand how to make this work in my own life. But once I kind of saw the patterns, and I tracked it month after month after month, even down to the symptoms, and you can log your symptoms in the Moody app. Um, I was like, "Oh, okay, this is why I'm getting migraines, certain times a month." They would just come at me randomly, and I could never figure out why I got a migraine. I thought it was because it was something I ate, which sometimes can be attributed, but, or why do I have this imposter syndrome? Like, I was confident, like thought I could do anything. And now all of a sudden I have this imposter syndrome. What is going on? And I couldn't figure it out. And I was so frustrated. And so that's how I really got into cycle syncing and understanding my female physiology. Understood it enough in my own life and for my own body that now this is a part of what we do with our clients and part of the coaching because um, yes, we can time block. Yes, we can be really good at time management. But as women, we're also really, really hard on ourselves. And when you can understand why your body is doing what it's doing, you can give it grace and you can learn to work with it instead of against it. So today, what I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to kind of bring in a combination of what I learned from Kate Northrup's book and also from the Moody app and also just from tracking my own cycle and working with clients who have done this. So we're going to talk about the different phases within your cycle. So you basically have 4 seasons within your 28-day cycle. You have a winter season, a spring season, a summer season, and a fall season. So the winter season, this is really the bleed phase. The winter season is the bleed phase. This is where you're going to feel like your body needs more rest. Maybe you feel like you need a nap. You're probably more critical and grumpy and short with people. And um, if you are a leader, if you are a business owner and you have a team, this is where you are maybe going to be more annoyed by things that your team members are doing or are not doing. And maybe normally you would have a little bit more grace or it wouldn't bother you as much. So I think this is really important for people who are leaders to understand because it affects how you interact with everybody around you, with the world around you. So the reason that you are um, feeling this way in the winter phase is because of your low levels of estrogen and progesterone. So your estrogen and your progesterone are at the lowest that they're going to be. And this is really important to understand because when we are in an industry with men where we're trying to keep up, um, we're actually harming our bodies. We're not really being productive in that moment. We're just frustrated that we're not being productive, right? So, what can you do? We talked about a winning mindset versus a fear of losing mindset and focusing on the process and what you can control instead of trying to focus on the outcome. So, when we're talking about harnessing the power of your female physiology, you get to control what you do in your bleed phase, right? You get to say, I'm going to allow my body to rest. Okay, so this is a great time for rest and reflection. What worked? What went well? What didn't go well? What's working? What's not working? This is a really great time. If you're frustrated with something, this is a good time to take a look and say, oh, maybe I need to change this. If I'm frustrated with this, maybe this is something that needs to change, or maybe it's not. But this is just a really good time to rest and reflect and allow your body that rest. So we talked about the ramp method. If you heard that episode, rest, align, master, peak, we talk about applying that to your day, your week, your month, and your year. So when we talk about applying the ramp method to your day and your week and your month, it really comes down to your female physiology and allowing your body to do what it wants to do and what it needs to do instead of pushing it and asking it and requiring it and expecting it to do something you really just don't have the capacity to do. Okay, so the next phase is the spring phase. So I love to think about this in the seasons of a year, right? So if we go back to that winter season, and you think about farming, there's a reason that farming doesn't happen all year long. The ground needs rest. It needs time to recoup. The flowers need time to rest, right? And then spring comes along, and now there's new growth. This is the time for planting and planning. What's your garden going to look like? Right. So this is the rise phase in the Moody app. They call it the rise phase because your energy is starting to increase due to increased estrogen and testosterone. When we talk about men, right? Men have testosterone. They have a lot more testosterone than women. Women have testosterone as well, but our testosterone is generally lower. But in the spring phase, this is where it's higher. This is where we are more likely to be able to compete with men. And I don't know that I like the word compete, but this is where you're going to have more of a masculine energy and you're going to be able to hammer stuff out and get stuff done um, every single day. Right? This is a good time for content creation, for planning, for starting new things. Kate Northrup refers to this as the plan and initiate phase. So think about farming and the ground and what that is. Your female cycle is designed exactly the same way as that. And when I understood this, I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Um, so the next phase is the summer phase. So the Moody app refers to this as the shift phase. Um, Kate Northrup refers to it as the connect and be visible phase. So your energy is going to be at its peak in the summer phase. You're going to be more want to be around people more often. This is a good time for speaking engagements. Um, but your estrogen is going to decrease and your progesterone is going to increase. So your energy is going to be at its peak, but then it's going to start to quickly fall. So that's why I was saying, like, I would have these days where I felt super energetic, and today is a perfect example. Um, and today and yesterday, I have been doing solo podcast episodes. So the ones that you hear when you hear me going doing a solo episode, it's because I am in um, right between my spring and my summer phase, where I have the most energy and my brain is thinking clearly instead of it being mush. So this is a great time for networking, one-on-one meetings, presentations. And then you move into the fall phase. So in the Moody app, this is called the reflect phase. And Kate Northrup refers to this as the complete and focus phase. So you're shifting to a lower energy as your progesterone increases and your estrogen decreases. So your hormones have just kind of swapped where they're at. This is a great time to complete tasks that you started in the spring phase, but you haven't completed. This is a good detail oriented goal planning. I tend to, in this phase, in the fall phase, I'm usually getting more tired. I can feel my body starting to shift. I know that my bleed phase is coming. Usually for me, my fall phase is about a week. My summer phase, I only get about 2 days. And that's different for everybody. And the reason that is the case for me is because my cycle is usually 25 days instead of 28 days. So my summer phase tends to be shorter. So typically, I set aside time in my summer phase to get as much done as I possibly can in my spring and my summer phase because it's only about a week and a half ish for me. Um, and on the days where I feel motivated and clear, that is when I'm doing all my content creation, whether that's a podcast episode or whether it's a social media post or whatever it is. So I tend to create the content and then Tara puts it together and makes it pretty and puts it out into the world because I hate doing that. So, really understanding your cycle can help you with time management. It can help you prevent burnout. It can help you overcome burnout because you have an awareness of what your body needs in each season. And you give your body the rest when it needs rest. And you plan and initiate when you want to plan and initiate. So, what I want to say about this is it's not always going to be perfect, right? Some people can look at their calendar and they know exactly if their cycle is consistent every single month, they know exactly what to plan and when to plan it. For me, because I've had kids and my hormones are a little jacked up, I'm working on getting them uh, I'm working on getting them back to normal. Um, but it is what it is, and so I have to learn to work with it. Um, and so I try not to plan speaking engagements and things like that during my bleed phase, um, or a couple days after my bleed phase. So, um, for me, I usually have a week and a half within the month that I just try not to plan any sort of speaking engagements or anything where I need to show up and have energy um, and be able to think clearly and not stumble over my words. Um, and I know that about myself. I've learned that about myself. I also don't do content creation the rest of my week. I only do it in the end of my spring and like my summer phase, because I've tried and I just get frustrated with myself and I don't get anywhere. I'm not productive, right? So I've gotten to a point where I've learned to allow my body to uh, do what it needs to. I've learned how to work with my body. And this takes time, it takes intention, it takes sitting down and actually like tracking it. And for a long time, I was like, oh, I don't have time for this, right? But the more I learned and the more I tracked it, and the more I started seeing the same exact symptoms and my body feeling the same way each month, I started to go, oh, maybe this is because of my hormones and where I'm at in my cycle. And sure enough, it was. And so that's what I love about the Moody app is it takes the thought process out of it, and it really says this is what's going on in your body. Do you feel this way? Do you not? Log your symptoms. It's really quick. It's really easy. I wish I would have learned about it when I first started with the cycle tracking. So the Moody app is now something that I recommend to anybody that I work with. As a part of our coaching, we actually integrate this and helping you figure out how to track and plan your day, your weeks, your month, and your year. So, learning to work with your female physiology instead of against it will serve you so much better. I promise. You're actually going to hear interview that I did with Lisa LeBlanc. This is something that she has started applying in her life. And so you're going to hear kind of her thoughts and what this looks like in her life as an agency owner. Because here's the thing is it sounds good and it sounds dandy and right and like, oh, well, that would be great if I could plan this. You can't always plan everything perfectly. Like I said, I do the best that I can, and sometimes the app is wrong, or sometimes my cycle changes or something happens. But at the end of the day, having that holistic approach and knowing like, oh, okay, well, I planned this thing, but I may be feeling this way and maybe this wasn't the best time to plan this. It's a learning experience, right? It's like, okay, well, I've committed to that. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to give myself grace if it's not what I want it to be. And next time, I'm going to try not to do that, right? So it's a process. It's a journey, but I would say just take away the um, the belief that you have to keep up with the way that men do things. And I think that's the belief, that's how society has trained us, because women used to stay at home, right? And they kept the house going and they kept the kids going, and men worked. And all of a sudden women entered the workforce, and they were still required to keep up with all of those things and to work, right? So now they have two responsibilities. And just because of the workday, being an 8-hour day, and this is how society works. Um, that doesn't mean that's how our bodies work. It doesn't mean that you necessarily, like, during your bleed phase, it doesn't mean you can shut your agency down and do nothing. No, that's not what we're saying. We're just saying shift what you're doing and pay attention to the phases, and allow yourself and your team, if you have female team members, um, teach them this, show them this, because they are going to be more productive for you as an employee if they also learn this and learn this about themselves and learn how to do this. And also, if you have male employees or you work with males, understand that men are the most productive in the morning, and then in the afternoon, their energy and their ability to be productive starts to wane off toward the afternoon and the evening. Um, so just being aware of how your body functions, and then also to take notice of your natural ebbs and flows throughout the year. So for me, wintertime, I tend to be less motivated. I'm more motivated in the summer. And so that's usually when I am working the most is in the summer. That's kind of my peak phase, and then the fall is like our master phase, and then the fall is kind of our peak phase. That's where our launches are, and our income and revenue growth is typically in the fall. And then the winter, it's getting darker outside, and there's holidays, and there's just a lot going on. And so my body, that's just kind of my natural rhythm. And then also throughout my day, my natural rhythm, I'm more of a night person. I tend to be more productive in the afternoon. And then I kind of have a period in the middle of the evening around 6 or 7 where I'm tired. And then I have energy again at like 9 o'clock, 9, 10 o'clock. So for me, I typically wake up around 8 a.m. I do a morning routine of yoga and breath work. I try not to plan any meetings in the mornings if I can avoid it. And if I do, I'm usually planning them in my summer phase, my spring summer phase. Um, and then afternoon is when I am the most productive. I can think the best, and I'm really at my best. And then evening is with my family. So, really learning how to create rest within your day, and what your natural rest is. And so, if you run an agency and you're there 8 to 5, there's some things that just are what they are, and you can't necessarily work with them. But if you are solo and you're by yourself and you make your own schedule, you get to do that. And even if you have an agency and a team and people who rely on you, you can still make this work. And like I said, Lisa LeBlanc will talk about this in her episode, um, and how she actually uses this in her own life, down to content creation and all of that stuff. So this can be very, very powerful for you, if you learn how to really take advantage of your female physiology. It is not a curse. It is not something that has to be against you. You can own it and you can learn to work with it. And once you do, I promise you're gonna thank yourself for investing the time and the energy into figuring it out. So I hope that was helpful for you today. Um, this is actually something that we are going to be walking through in our Success Without Sacrifice mastermind. I firmly believe that learning to take advantage of your female physiology is the best way, one of the best ways for you to have success without sacrificing yourself and what's most important to you. The other thing I'll say too, within the different seasons of your cycle, is understanding your body and what it requires nutritionally and also exercise wise. This is not something we necessarily walk through or give you resources, but there are resources out there. But understanding in your bleed phase, this is not the time for you to be strengthening your body and doing crazy workouts, because your ligaments are more lax. This is actually something in the sports world that has been debated for a long time, of if females should sit out during their bleed phase because their ligaments are more lax and they're more likely to get injury. But again, because of competition and because of the schedule, and because sports are not designed, the seasons aren't designed around a woman's cycle, right? It's not, you just can't do it. And so we can take advantage of it, but we also have to be flexible, right? In a perfect world, we could do whatever we wanted, but understand the different phases. In the spring and the summer phase, you're going to feel more strength and energized, and that's a much better time to do strengthening type exercises. So just think about your energy and how it is in the winter, spring, summer, fall, in the actual seasons of life, and how you feel. And you're probably going to start to notice that your body feels that same way every single month and within the weeks. So we're going to be talking about how to incorporate this into the RAMP method, how to incorporate this into your life and your business, in the Success Without Sacrifice Mastermind. For more details on the Success Without Sacrifice Mastermind, you can find the link in the show notes below. And I hope that this was helpful for you today. Make sure you go download the Moody app and get yourself started. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to message me anytime. We're always available. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram at Success Without Sacrifice Coaching. Would love to hear from you and any takeaways that you had from this episode. We will be back with you next week. Thank you so much for listening to the Insurance Revolutionized podcast today. We know there is a lot on your plate, so it means the world to us that you stopped in to give us a listen. We hope you will join us each week as we dive into topics such as mindset, goal setting, productivity, self-care, and so much more. We want to inspire more women to have success without sacrificing what is most important to them, and we need your help. If this podcast has inspired you, would you do us a favor? Would you take a minute to leave us a rating and a review or share with your friends? Let's change the face of insurance for women. Until next time.